So first, tell me how you're using this testing here at Mayo Clinic.
What we do is we go through, we test the patients get a report back, they bring the report in and a pharmacist goes over the report along with their medication list, and we make recommendations to the physicians on how to guide therapy.
How often and for which patients are you using it?
Pretty much anyone that sends the test in, gets the results back, and then sees their doctor and they want to know more about the results or maybe direction with therapy afterward.
Okay, so in your opinion, after seeing these results, do you think this is something that everybody should be getting?
I think it's something that would apply to an awful lot of folks, because even if we don't take a lot of medications now, we will be taking them in the future. And these tests right now, the way they are, they test our genetics, so therefore it's going to be permanent. So if there's a particular drug that I can't take because I'm genetically programmed to get more side effects or for it not to work, then 10 years from now that should be the same.
How does this take the guesswork out of things for you and for patients?
It gives a guide. Sometimes it's just a guide. Sometimes only a class of drugs or certain types of drugs that are metabolized by certain enzymes. Other times it's a certain enzyme or a certain transport protein that can cause like a really bad rash, like something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome. In that case, it could be fatal. So in other words, that's an all or none. Do not take this particular drug, or there's a high percentage chance that maybe something fatal can happen or a hospitalization.
Do you feel like this test could save lives?
I think in some instances, yes. I think more commonly, it'll guide therapy, avoid extra doctor visits, emergency room visits, hospitalizations by guiding therapy away from those therapies that don't work toward those that work better or the ones that will work optimally.
So I know in some countries that they test everyone. I think is it the UK and I think Australia, that it's part of their state-run plan. Why do you think more people are not getting tested here? Or why hasn't it become bigger than it is at the moment?
In the past, it's been expense and insurance payment. A lot of insurance payers, most don't pay for the testing. They'll pay for specific ones, but most of the time they're not going to pay for the testing because it has been historically very expensive, but it's much less expensive now, and I think some payers are considering paying for it more now than they did in the past.
Are there any groups of people that you feel should get this test no matter what, whether that's elderly, heart patients, anything along those lines?
Folks that have chronic diseases or serious diseases at more of an earlier age, yes, it's a good idea. It's also a good idea for folks who may have had certain kinds of genetic disorders run in the family. It's probably critical that some of those folks do the testing, not only just for the pharmacogenomics and the drugs, but also maybe genomic testing for those specific ailments that are run in their families.
So I had this done, and I know I shared my results with you. Anything that really jumped out at you?
Nothing really big that jumps out. You're young, so you're not taking a lot of medications. However, it did give some indications of some drug classes and some other medications that might be specific to those drug classes, even more so within the class, that might be a better choice for you going forward should you get certain kinds of disease states and need certain kinds of therapy.
So I looked at this and I saw, like if I was to ever get high cholesterol, there's not a single medicine that I don't have some sort of cautionary, point to move forward. Let me rephrase that. When I was looking at my results, I noticed that when it came to high cholesterol, if I was ever to get high cholesterol, I might have a problem with every single medicine that was listed there. So in those types of situations, just knowing, that I have a son at home, he's very young, but do you think that it's a benefit to get him tested now, knowing that I definitely have some sort of reaction with certain things, even beyond, those particular drugs?
Maybe down the road, maybe if he's quite young, maybe you don't have to do it right away. However, in your case, if there's some that it's not always an all or none, it's a graduated effect. So in your case, you had some mild things. However, it's not always an all or none. It could be that you just need a lower dose of certain ones, and the jury's out on a couple of them that aren't metabolized exactly like the specific tests that you had done, but there's still room to use those drugs, maybe in a different dose, or maybe use a different one of the newer ones that they don't have as much research on, so we don't have as much background information on previous side effects and intolerances.
So I know one of the other things that it showed in the particular test, I know that the ohm test that you guys have, or 1 ohm, doesn't do the MTHFR testing, but that was part of the one I took, and it came back that I have a deficiency. I know you were saying that the jury is still out on that, but for me, I always feel sick, I always feel tired, and looking at that test and thinking, hey, this might be some sort of answer, and I was able to switch some of the things I was doing, and I feel better. Do you think there really is something to that?
The question is that since the jury's still out, we don't know enough about it. However, when you look at the bulk of the literature with MTHFR, a lot of folks have the deficiency, but they seem to get enough folate in their diet. Unless you're a pregnant woman, of course, you should be supplemented with folate to prevent neural tube defects and things such as that. However, in the case of just having a deficiency, usually we